Well, good evening, everyone. How you doing? You want to come up here and give me some remarks here? Yeah. He's a public defender right there. I'm truly honored to be here tonight. Man, what a week, huh? Wasn't it something? The night after election night, of course, I watched the results and woke up and, felt like I just woke up on another planet. Or maybe I wanted to go to another planet. But you know what? The reality is that as much as things change, and we are about change, we make that change happen without the federal government. And the idea that we can count on our elected leaders, whether Democrat, Republican, whoever, to make social change in this country, particularly around the issue of criminal justice reform, is really a myth. And it's always come from the grassroots. And it's always come from people just like you. I met David and his family some time ago because they would come up to our Justice Summit that we have in San Francisco every year. And he told me about the Court Watch program, and I thought it was so brilliant. The idea of shining a light on what goes on in dark and musty courtrooms. And he's taken this program and really created a model here. And so I, for one, am going to support his efforts to bring this to Sacramento and San Francisco because it's such an important program. When you read the blogs, when you read the stories, not only are they written well, but they report things that we don't hear about or read about in mainstream media. Now, media is starting to catch up. We're seeing a lot more criminal injustice programming. I'm not talking about Law and Order. I'm talking about programs that depict the realities of injustice in the system, where we're seeing more of that. And it's because of Black Lives Matter. It's because of the social movement that is gripping this country. And that really has nothing to do with who is president or who the administration is. And I know, when we hear who's going to be Attorney General or who's going to be Homeland Security, it's like a cabinet from hell. It's like, could you think of more terrible people, to be given those responsibilities and that kind of power? And sure, it's disheartening when you see that. But again, when it comes down to really fighting against the injustice that we see in the courts and in the criminal justice system, I don't care who's in that position. Sure, we had some people under Obama's administration who were much more open to that kind of change. But for the most part, the government works and the courts work precisely as they were designed to work. People say, the criminal justice system is broken. I never say that. I always say the system is working exactly the way it was designed. How many people have seen the documentary 13 on Netflix? Those of you who haven't seen it, you have to see it. Because it talks about how the criminal justice system, and I call it the criminal injustice system, from the very beginning was created in order to incarcerate people for cheap labor, and primarily people of color. That immediately after the proclamation, that declared slavery illegal, almost within weeks, there was a movement to criminalize petty offenses like vagrancy laws, and they were used as means to incarcerate young African Americans who supposedly had been freed by slavery. And that the exception to the 13th Amendment, of course, is that if you were in prison, then you could be subject to being treated essentially as a slave. And that practice continues today. So when you talk about the Jim Crow laws, the laws excluding Latinos, Asian Americans, the annihilation of 100 million Native Americans, the continuation of slavery through mass incarceration, right? That narrative, has been part of not only this country's history, but our present reality today. And that's what we accept, I think, as the thing that we have to change. Those of us that see it on a day-to-day level. I was just in Mississippi 2 weeks ago. You think things are bad out here in Yolo County? Man, I thought I'd seen it all. I had a chance to meet with 200 public defenders there and talk about racial justice litigation, which is sort of a subject that I've been giving talks around the country about. It's kind of weird, like being an Asian dude from Sacramento talking about racial justice in Mississippi. But I was there more to learn than anything. But there, not only do you have no right to bail, but you have no right to even be informed of what evidence they have against you until they indict you. Well, okay, that sounds fair. They decide to charge you, then they give you the evidence. Here's the kicker, right? There's no time limit on when they have to indict you. So what happens there is you're arrested, even on a misdemeanor offense, and you're held in custody until your indictment, which can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to be indicted. During that time, you have no right to what we call as lawyers pretrial discovery, which is looking at the police report and the other evidence in the case until you are indicted. And so you have all these people who are languishing in jail who don't even know what they're charged with. One of the public defenders told me that she has a caseload of 600 unindicted individuals on her caseload. She was walking out of the jail cell a couple weeks ago, and she could hear this voice, sound like a little kid, a little voice, and there was a little paper coming out of a hole in the door. So she took the paper, and it was a young teenager. He was only 17 years old, because there in Mississippi, you'll be charged as an adult when you're 17. If you're charged with a gun offense, and you're 13 and a half and older, you're charged as an adult there. 13 and a half years old. And you're housed in supposedly a separate juvenile area in the adult prison. But she got this note, and it said, help me. So she looked up his case. It turned out that he had been in that jail for 8 months, unindicted, for a misdemeanor offense. Get this, $1,000 bail. $1,000 bail. And, that story is basically the norm of what people experience day to day there. And, you think about that. I mean, it sounds like something that's coming out of another country. Not the United States of America, where it's supposed to be equal justice for all. And, I just heard so many stories like this. And there you don't have a right to a speedy trial. You don't have a right to a speedy arraignment once you've been arrested. And so you just sit in jail until you either plead guilty or they indict you. And so in the case of the 17-year-old, the lawyer brought this to the judge and said, hey, you got to let this kid out. And the judge finally said, okay. And the prosecutor indicted him the next day so they could keep him in jail, So the bail system, if you call it a system, is one that not only discriminates based on the size of your wallet or the amount of money that you have, But it doesn't care. It doesn't care what you're charged with. It doesn't care what your family and community roots are. It doesn't care about your job. It doesn't care about your living situation. It doesn't care about your pet. It doesn't care about your kids. It doesn't care about your family. Right? It's not based on any of that. Just based on how much money you have. That's why Bernie Madoff was out. Right? Because not only could he post bail, but he was also able to afford his own private security guards who were assigned to watch him when he was out on bail pending the outcome of his case for years. You could be charged with murder. It doesn't matter. If you got the money, you're out. Yet, if you're like that kid in Mississippi, or people anywhere that can't afford even $500 or $1,000 bail, you are behind bars until your case is adjudicated. What that also means is that you're more likely to plead guilty. Why? Because that's the only way to get out, and judges know that. And this is something that judges participate in each and every day, that they will keep a client in custody, knowing that at the next calling of the case, the person is going to be screaming to get out, guilty or innocent, whether or not the case can be proven or not. And we do have a procedure to ask for a bail hearing, even after bail has been initially set, because the way it works now typically is that at your first court appearance, when you're assigned an attorney, your attorney interviews the person in 5 minutes, runs up to the podium, tries to make a bail pitch. But these motions are not done with the kind of care that you would expect, particularly if you're talking about a person's freedom pending the outcome of their trial. If it's a misdemeanor case, at least in California, we have a right to a speedy trial. So in a misdemeanor case, if you're in custody, you have a right to a speedy trial in 30 days. And if you're out of custody in 45 days, in a felony case, it's about 3 months before you go to trial, which is still a long time. But we can ask for a speedy trial. In many places, you don't have that right. And because of that, what happens is that a person simply pleads guilty to get out. That's the greatest motivator for people pleading guilty. It's not whether the charges can be proven, but it's whether or not they can get out of jail as soon as possible. And you put yourself in that situation. Think about what you would do if suddenly everything you knew was taken away and you were incarcerated. And we're supposed to have a presumption of innocence. We're supposed to have a system that reserves judgment. But the reality is that you're going to be presumed guilty from day one. The judge will look at the report, the police report, whatever the police say, and will say, okay, as far as we're concerned, we're going to treat you as a flight risk, we're going to treat you as if you're guilty, and we're going to keep you locked up for society's benefit, for public safety. And it has nothing to do, really, with any of those things, because if you can post bail, you're out the door. Regardless, you could have 50 false visas from all over the country or passports, and they're going to let you out if you can post the money. Now, how is bail set? This is even more nonsensical. There's something that's called a bail schedule. Right now, keep in mind that bail is supposed to be set based on your ability to pay, but they have a general schedule that simply states the offense, like resisting arrest, and it has an amount next to it, like $20,000. Now, you would think that we'd have one bail schedule for California. We are, after all, one state. No, instead, we have a separate bail schedule for every county. Every county has its own bail schedule. And if you compare the bail schedules, which I've done, I've looked at all the bail schedules, at least for the major cities, you will see huge discrepancies. For example, sales of drugs. In some places, it's a $5,000 bail, or even $2,500. In San Francisco, it's $35,000. So you can find bails that are 7, 8, 9 times as high. How are these bails set? There's a committee of judges. This is what the law allows. The committee of judges decides the bail for everybody else, and it's not subject to any kind of review. I know because I've tried to get into those meetings. I've tried to have some input, even writing letters. And they say, no, the law doesn't allow for that. And so these numbers are just set arbitrarily. Last year, for example, for contempt of court, which is like not showing up to court or flipping off a judge or something like that, they doubled the amount of bail for that in 1 year. So it went up 100%. Now, how is that justified? Is that based on inflation? Is it based on, some public safety danger that suddenly arose in a year? No. Somebody decided arbitrarily just to increase the amount of bail. Now, you may be thinking, hey, you know what? I've never been in trouble. I'm never going to be in that situation. Why should we care? Because when we talk about what's happening, with the criminal and justice system in this country, it has consequences everywhere. Why is college so expensive? Right? I mean, by the time you two go to college, it may be 3 or 4 times more than it is right now. And we're talking about public universities. It's because the highest ticket item is incarceration in the state. We're spending more money on incarcerating individuals than we are higher education in this country. About 8 years ago, it surpassed that, and it's been much more ever since. The fact that we have so many people in jail is because we incarcerate people using a bail system. And the reason why the bail system has persisted, even though it makes absolutely no sense, is because it's a profit-driven industry. They have a very, very powerful lobby. I know I've met with their national lobbyist a couple months ago, and he was telling me about their interest in making sure that the bail system stays the same. The United States is only one of 2 countries that allows a for-profit bail system. Can anyone think of the other? Philippines. Yeah, that's right. You guys know your stuff. I saw that on the John Oliver program, which is great on bail. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's amazing. But the argument is that, from the bail industry at least, is that that's how they assure people get to court. But for people who are poor, they never get the chance to show up to court because they're in jail. And although they're not the customers typically of the bail industry, I'm talking about people who are homeless or poor, who can't even afford $100. Many of our clients who are poor and are of color are. Why? Because they're the ones that use the bail services, right? Because if you have a house, you have collateral, or you have cash where you can put up $100,000 bail in a case, then you'll get that money back at the end. If you don't have that money, then you're going to have to make a deal with the bail bonds people, and they'll take 10% of your money, they'll post a bail for you, and then that money is gone. Now, what is even more nefarious is that they have payment plans. And so a person, let's say, can't afford a $100,000 bail, maybe they only have $1,000 or $500, or maybe have the money at all. They sign a contract with the bail agency to pay it over a period of time, installment payments. And it's such a tragic thing that I see happen again and again. Why? Because a person often is arrested,